Gold was the color of the parched grasslands stretching to the horizon in Masai Mara National Park. That dry season was more severe than ever before, transforming the once lush canyon landscape into a brutal arena of survival. In the midst of this wilderness, Nala, a 9-year-old lioness, once majestic and powerful, now lay motionless under a solitary acacia tree, her emaciated body revealing protruding ribs beneath her tattered skin. The March morning sunlight filtered through the lens of James Miller's camera. A veteran wildlife photographer, he was conducting his annual survey in the eastern section of the park. 20 years in the profession had made him witness countless heartbreaking scenes of survival. But Nala's eyes made his heart clench. They reflected not just physical pain, but the quiet dignity of a fallen queen who refused to surrender to fate. The rumble of the rescue team's truck broke the savannah's silence to kill. Emily Anderson, a 42-year-old veterinarian with wind-tossed fiery red hair and piercing blue eyes behind her glasses, led the team approaching the lioness. Her sweat-soaked jacket clung to her back as she knelt beside the sedated Nala. Her professional hands gently moved over the lioness's emaciated body, and when they reached the abnormally swollen abdomen, her expression darkened. Nala wasn't just dying, she was pregnant. The sun blazed mercilessly as the rescue team carefully loaded Nala onto their specialized truck. Michael Thomas, a 35-year-old conservationist with deep brown skin and thoughtful dark eyes, sat beside the lioness throughout the bumpy journey. His callous hands gently stroked Nala's ragged fur, his mind filled with unspoken questions. A wild lioness, typically vigilant and fierce toward humans, now lay motionless under his touch. This was even more concerning than the visible wounds on her body. The Mara Wildlife Conservation Center appeared like an oasis amidst the aid surroundings. Inside the special care unit, fluorescent lights reflected off gleaming metal surfaces and pristine white marble floors. Hurried footsteps and the sound of machinery filled the air as Nala was placed on the examination table. Blood, urine, x-rays, ultrasounds. Every test was conducted with urgent yet careful precision. The results appeared on the computer screen like a death sentence. Nala had feline leukemia, a rare and deadly variant of the disease typically found in domestic cats, liver failure, kidney failure, septicemia. The long list of health problems showed in Dr. Anderson's worried eyes. She estimated Nala was about 90 days pregnant, close to term. But in her current condition, she would unlikely survive more than a month. The afternoon light faded, giving way to artificial illumination in the conference room, where the medical team discussed Nala's fate. A heavy atmosphere hung as they weighed each option. Let Nala give birth naturally. She was too weak. Perform a C-section. She wouldn't survive the surgery. Do nothing. Both mother and cubs would die. Sigh and sad glances were exchanged as they reached their final decision. Humane euthanasia was the only way to release Nala from her suffering. The decision was made on a scorching afternoon when Nala's condition suddenly deteriorated. Her body temperature dropped to alarming levels and her vital signs fluctuated dangerously. Although they knew it was the right medical decision, none of them found it easy to end the life of such a beautiful and brave creature as Nala. The euthanasia procedure was scheduled for the next morning. Nala's final night was not a lonely one. Michael volunteered to stay, sitting beside the lioness, his heart heavy with the upcoming task. He didn't know that dawn would bring a miracle that would change everything. The first rays of dawn filtered through the special care unit's window, creating warm light patterns on the pristine floor. Michael, after a sleepless night, sat beside Nala with bloodshot eyes and a heavy heart. The wall clock showed 6:00 a.m., 2 hours before Dr. Anderson would arrive to perform the final procedure. Throughout the long night, Michael had whispered stories about the Mara grasslands to Nala, about herds of antelopes running beneath the sunlight, about the star-filled night sky, and about powerful lions roaring freely. These words weren't necessarily for Nala to understand, but were Michael's way of getting through this heartbreaking night to let Nala know that in her final hours, she wasn't alone. The early morning sunlight was warm enough for Michael to leave his chair, intending to pour himself a cup of coffee. At that moment, a small change in Nala made him stop. The lioness was looking at him, not with the vacant stare of previous days, but with alert and focused eyes. And then the impossible happened. Small droplets rolled down from Nala's amber eyes, settling on her ragged fur. Animal tears, a phenomenon still debated endlessly by scientists. A physiological reaction to pain, an eye-protecting mechanism, or a sign of deeper emotions. In that moment, all scientific theories became meaningless. Michael only saw a suffering creature begging for help in the only language she could. His hand had just reached for the phone to call Dr. Anderson when he noticed something else. Slight contractions in Nala's abdomen, almost imperceptible, but regular and rhythmic. Michael's heart pounded as he realized what was happening. Dr. Anderson appeared just 15 minutes after his call, medical bag in hand and euthanasia syringe prepared. But upon entering the room, her professional eyes immediately recognized the situation. The syringe was forgotten as she hurriedly called her team. Nal was in labor. The special care unit quickly transformed into a delivery room in less than half an hour. Veterinarians and rescue staff gathered around Nala, people who had given up hope now working with renewed determination to help new lives enter the world. Dr. Karen Mitchell, a young veterinarian with neatly tied black hair and bright brown eyes full of passion, had never witnessed a birth as tense as this one. Each contraction seemed to drain Nala's remaining strength, making everyone in the room hold their breath with each weak beat on the monitor. 4 hours passed like a test of will and patience. Nala received fluids, antibiotics, and was closely monitored for every vital sign. Michael remained by her side, wiping away the beads of sweat on her nose, whispering words of encouragement in her ear. Nala somehow seemed to understand everyone's efforts. Her eyes, once clouded by illness, now shone with a glimmer of living will. By the 5th hour, the atmosphere in the room grew heavier. Nala was visibly weakening, yet the lion cubs had not yet been born. Dr. Anderson considered emergency surgery, though knowing well that in Nala's condition it could be an immediate death sentence, 30 minutes. That was the final time she could allow before intervention. But Nala didn't need that long. Just 5 minutes after the decision, a contraction stronger than any before caused her to emit a weak but determined roar. And then in the morning light-filled room, the first life emerged, a small male lion cub, wet and trembling, but alive. Karen's cheer rang out as she quickly wrapped the baby in warm towels, checking his breathing and heartbeat, weak but steady. In the next 20 minutes, 2 more lives came into the world, 1 male and 1 female. All 3 were smaller than normal, but had somehow survived against all odds in their sick mother's womb. Joy filled the room, not just from the weak cries of the newborn cubs, but also from the happy tears of the medical team who had witnessed this miracle. Nala, almost completely exhausted after the delivery, still tried to raise her head to look at her cubs. With what remained of her strength, she licked the nearest cub, maternal instinct, overcoming pain and exhaustion. Michael, standing nearby with tear-filled eyes, couldn't believe what was happening. Just hours before they had prepared to say goodbye to Nala, now 4 lives filled the room instead of 1. Dr. Anderson, with 15 years of experience working with wildlife, couldn't hide her emotions either. Throughout her career, she had witnessed the astonishing, resilient power of life. But Nala had taken that to a new level, a testament to the power of maternal love transcending the boundaries between life and death. The joy of that miraculous moment, however, was mixed with practical concern. Dr. Anderson knew the cubs needed immediate testing for the leukemia that afflicted their mother. Moreover, Nala's post-delivery condition remained extremely dangerous. With a heavy heart, she explained to Michael that they needed to separate the babies from their mother. They needed special medical care, and contact with Nala, especially nursing, could be fatally dangerous for them. Michael reluctantly nodded, understanding it was best for the cubs' future. As the cubs were taken away, he stayed with Nala, comforting her as she weakly called out for her missing babies. In the Lioness, Mother's eyes was an indescribable pain, the pain of knowing she had brought life but might not see them grow. Sunlight filtered through the acacia trees, creating dancing spots of light on the pristine laboratory floor. 2 days had passed since the miraculous event, and the medical team anxiously awaited test results from the 3 lion cubs. Meanwhile, the tiny beings were placed in warm incubators fed with special formula for big cats and monitored 24/7. Their weak cries grew stronger each day, as if they were trying to call for their distant mother. Nala was cared for in a separate room where soft light filtered through curtains, creating a peaceful space. She received powerful antibiotic therapy and a high-energy diet administered through tubes as she was too weak to eat naturally. Although the delivery had depleted her last reserves of strength, Nala's spirit seemed transformed. Eyes once clouded now had a new light, the light of a mother who had completed her most important mission. On the 3rd morning after birth, brilliant sunlight flooded the conference room as doctor. Anderson called an emergency meeting. In her hands was a stack of the latest test papers, and on her usually serious face was a rare smile. The room fell silent as she announced the unbelievable results. All 3 lion cubs tested negative for the leukemia virus. They were completely healthy. Cheers erupted in the room, breaking the tension of the past few days. For those who had worked with wildlife long enough, this wasn't just a surprise. It was a miracle. Feline leukemia, like in domestic cats, is typically transmitted from mother to offspring during pregnancy. That all 3 cubs had escaped the disease was almost scientifically inexplicable. Michael's eyes shone with hope. If the babies were healthy, they could have a future their mother had risked her life to provide. However, this joy didn't diminish the painful reality of Nala's condition. Dr. Anderson gently reminded the team that although Nala's leukemia hadn't infected her cubs, it was still ravaging her body. The latest tests showed her liver and kidneys failing at an alarming rate. It was a difficult and somewhat risky decision, but Dr. Anderson allowed Nala to see her cubs under close supervision. They couldn't nurse, but at least she could see them, smell them, and know her sacrifice wasn't in vain. The reunion took place in the special care unit where natural light flooded through large windows. Michael carefully placed each cub next to Nala. Though weak, the mother tried to lick and groom her cubs with astonishing gentleness. The tiny mews of the cubs blended with Nala's soft purr, creating a symphony of maternal love that transcended all boundaries. This was the first time since they found Nala that Michael saw true peace on her face. No more pain, no more fear, only the pure love of a mother for her children. Dr. Anderson stood nearby, moved by this scene, understanding they had done the right thing by creating this precious moment. The following days passed in a new rhythm. The cubs, named Hope, Faith, and Courage, thrived under the team's devoted care. They were fed every 2 hours, kept warm in special incubators, and gradually began opening their eyes to the world around them. Hope, the only female, had large, round eyes and a curious nature, always the first to wake at the sound of approaching staff. Faith, the largest male, had darker golden fur and a calm demeanor, often observing everything before acting, reminiscent of adult lions' caution. And Courage, the youngest, though smallest, was the bravest, never hesitating to explore every corner of the incubator whenever possible. Nala was allowed to see her cubs daily, precious moments that Michael captured with his camera. These photos, when shared with colleagues, quickly spread throughout the wildlife conservation community. The story of the brave lioness mother and her 3 miraculous cubs began touching many hearts. William Johnson, a major donor to wildlife conservation projects in Africa, was deeply moved when he heard about Nala. He contacted the center committing financial support for Nala's care and the raising of her 3 cubs. "Every life is worth saving," he wrote in his email, and Nala's story is proof of the strength and resilience of nature. But despite dedicated care and the joy of meeting her cubs, Nala's health continued to decline. By the 3rd week after giving birth, she barely had strength to lift her head. Her eyes, once bright when seeing her cubs, now returned to being cloudy and tired. One April morning, when the first rays of sun slipped through the door crack, Michael arrived at the center earlier than usual. Something urged him to be with Nala. When he entered the room, warm golden sunlight filled the space, enveloping Nala in a gentle halo. She lay there motionless, no longer breathing, but on her face was a rare serenity. Nala had passed during the night, 2 months after giving birth, but she didn't die as a lonely abandoned lioness on the grassland. She passed surrounded by care, loved, and with the legacy of 3 new lives she had brought into this world. Michael stood by the bed, his trembling hand stroking the tattered fur one last time. Tears rolled down his sun-tanned face as he realized that in death, Nala had maintained the dignity of a queen. News of Nala's death spread quickly through the center like a sad wind. Though they had prepared mentally for this moment, it still broke everyone's heart. They organized a simple memorial ceremony in the Cent's backyard where acacia trees provided shade similar to where they had found her. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating dancing spots of light on the ground as if nature itself was honoring one of its bravest children. Dr. Anderson stood before the group, her voice lowered with emotion. Nala had taught them about the power of maternal love, about resilience in the face of adversity. She had fought not for her own survival, but so her children could live, and in that way a part of her would always exist in her cubs. Life at the center continued with the new presence of the 3 lion cubs. Each passing day, they grew stronger. Hope, with her perceptive eyes, was always the first to detect approaching staff bringing food. Faith, with his calm demeanor, often observed everything before acting, reminding everyone of adult lion's caution, and courage, though the smallest, always led every adventure, never hesitating to face new challenges. Thanks to William Johnson's generous support and others inspired by Nala's story, the center built a special area for the 3 cubs, a spacious environment with trees, boulders, and a small pool. An environment as close to natural as possible while ensuring safety and regular medical care. When they were old enough, they would be transferred to a larger reserve where they could live more freely, though still under supervision. 6 months after Nala's death, on a beautiful morning with a cloudless blue sky, Michael visited her 3 cubs. They had grown considerably, no longer the tiny, trembling creatures he had seen on the day they were born. Golden fur gleaming in the sun, strong bodies, and sharp claws, they were gradually becoming true lions. As Michael stood watching, all 3 siblings suddenly began a small hunt. Their target was a fake antelope placed in their area by the center staff. Hope nimbly approached from the right. Faith patiently waited at the back while Courage bravely charged straight from the front. Their coordination and instinct amazed Michael. Karen, standing beside him with medical records in hand, smiled at Michael's surprise. They resembled their mother more than anyone could imagine. The same resilience, the same fighting spirit, and especially the same love for each other. In each of their movements, Michael saw Nala's shadow, not a weak and sick Nala, but a strong and majestic Nala, as she should have lived. Michael nodded, a slight smile appearing on his face. Nala would be proud of them. She had given them a chance to live, a chance she knew she wouldn't have. That was the greatest gift, a testament to the unconditional love that only a mother could have for her children. As sunlight shone on the young, healthy bodies of the 3 lion cubs, Michael knew that Nala still lived, not in physical form, but in the legacy of love and sacrifice. These 3 strong new lives were living proof of the power of maternal love, capable of crossing the boundaries between life and death. Hope, faith, and courage would grow up, perhaps giving birth to next generations, and a part of Nala would always exist in their bloodline. Her story would continue to be told, inspiring conservationists and reminding the world of the priceless value of each wildlife. As Michael left the cubs area, he paused one last time to look at them. Under the blazing sun, Hope turned her head and looked straight into his eyes. In that moment, Michael saw Nala's gaze, eyes that had once shed tears on that fateful morning. But now, no more pain, no more despair, only peace and pride. "Nala," Michael whispered, "your work is done. Rest in peace." A gentle breeze passed through, rustling the acacia leaves as if nature was responding to his whisper. And, in that moment, under Kenya's deep blue sky, Michael felt Nala's presence, not in pain and illness, but in the strength and beauty of the wild grasslands. In the roars her children would leave behind, and in the hearts of all who had been touched by her story.